I'm here. Today I'm going to show you a real easy way to make a peach whiskey. This is the mash. So this will just be the mash stage. In about a week or so when everything's fermented, then I will do another video on the distilling process. But right now the recipe for the mash, can't be any more simple. This is going to be for a 5-gallon batch. So I've got about 3 gallons of spring water coming to a boil here. I use spring water. Number one, I have well water, so well water would be okay, but my well water is not great. If you have city water, you don't want to be using that because it's got a lot of times got chlorine in it or whatever, fluorides and stuff. So use spring water, real spring water. It ends up working out a little bit better. So I do that. So this is going to be a 5-gallon batch. So we're going to do, rule of thumb is 1 pound of sugar per gallon of water. But because I'm going to do peach, this has a lot of syrups in it. So I'm going to do about 4 pounds of sugar, 5 29-ounce cans of peaches, which is a little bit of overkill, but that'll be all right. And we're going to use yeast and amylase. So basically, you're going to bring your water to a boil, and you're going to add in your sugar and stir it up until it dissolves. Alright, I've got a little bit of the hot water here from this batch I've got in here. I'm going to put this one back in the bowl here to activate my yeast. So I've got that, and then I'm going to take the strainer and I'm going to pour in my peaches. Now, I broke my can opener while I was doing my peaches, so just to add a little more danger to this, I had to open the last 2 cans with this. So the nice jagged edges here. But danger is my middle name, so we'll have to go with it. So I'm gonna do that and get all the syrups in first. I like to break the peaches up a little bit. Not really completely mash them up, but it kind of breaks it up a little bit. So each one of these is going to be a little bit squished up. So you're going to do that with each can. Just gives it a little more surface area. I don't know if it actually makes anything better or not, but I always like to do it. So there's one, and I'll come back when the rest of them are done.
Go.
Okay, so I've got all my peaches inside here. Everything's ready. It's going to come to a boil. I forgot one very important step. The most important thing when you're doing this, make sure your wife is not home, because you are going to make a mess and she's not going to be happy. So next thing, we're going to activate our yeast. So for a 5-gallon batch, I know a lot of people use the packets of this. So it says that 2 1/4 teaspoons is equal to 1 package of yeast. So for a 5-gallon batch, I would use about 5 packets. So I'm going to go with about 10 teaspoons. I'm going to, before I do that, I'm going to put some sugar in here. That's the warm water before it can go boil. This water should be around 100 degrees, 110 max. I don't have a thermometer, so I just kind of guesstimating here. But it's warm, it's not hot. So we're going to go with 10 of these. And 10. So give that a little bit of a stir. In about 5 or 10 minutes that should start to activate, hopefully, if the yeast is good. Alright, and then, I never know how to say this, I think it's called amylase. So we're going to use about a half a teaspoon of amylase. It's a powder. It's an enzyme that helps break down the sugars. So we're going to go with about a half a teaspoon of this. So I've got probably enough for 2 batches. So there's about that right there. And you're just going to sprinkle that in over the peaches and the water and the sugar. Alright, so that's going to go there. I'm going to give this a little stir, make sure everything's good and mixed up. So this is going to come to a real slow boil just for a couple minutes. We just want to get it hot enough to actually boil this up. It's more important if you're using fresh peaches. The canned peaches are already soft, so it's not that big of a deal. So we're going to go with that. That's going to boil up for a minute, and we're going to get ready to get it into our, I don't know what they call it. That's a fermenting jug or something. I don't know what everybody calls these things. So in order to get that in here with all the peaches and stuff, I don't have a funnel. Some people use a funnel, but my funnels are out in the garage covered in oil. So I just took one of the jugs of spring water, and I cut some fins in here so that it fits in here. And I will scoop a little at a time until this fills up, and I will top it off with cold water. You don't want to add the yeast until you don't want to have hot water in here with the yeast. You'll kill the yeast off. So you're going to want the water to be the final mixture. When you add the yeast, you only want that to be about 100 degrees. So we'll do that, and I'll let you. I'll save you the trouble of watching the rest of this water boil and everything. So we'll go with that, and I will be back when it's ready. All right. So we got this coming to a boil. Just about starting to boil now. The yeast has been activated. You can see the foam starting in there. All nice and foamy. That way you know your yeast is working. And we're going to transfer this into here. Okay, that's it. Everything's done. This is the yeast is all ready to go. This has been boiling for a minute. I ended up hitting the peaches with the little puree thing just to break them up a little further. I didn't think they were going to all make it through this little spout. So this is one of the messier parts of the process where you are going to drip this everywhere. And makes a sticky mess. So I'm try to do this without making as much of a mess as possible. Yeah, see? There it goes. So kind of a mess, but you can get it in there. It's kind of a long process. So I'll spare you that, and I'll come back when it's all filled up and ready to go. Add the rest of the yeast, or all the yeast. Now that this has cooled down a little bit, it took a little while longer than I wanted it to. Try not to spill it all over the sides. Okay, so that's that. We're going to put a little bit more spring water in there just to top it off. You want to leave some room. I bring it right up to around that ridge here. You want to leave some room for that to foam up, because when this foams, it'll start getting into your airlock if it goes too high. So. All right. And then we're going to put the airlock in. Fill that up like that. Alright, so that is it. So in about an hour or so that should start to bubble. letting you know that all the yeast is working and everything will start settling down. You're going to want to wrap this in a blanket or put it in a warm spot in the house. It should stay somewhere between 85 and 100 degrees. It does generate some heat while it's working, kind of like compost. It kind of works itself into some heat. So it usually stays a little warmer than the air. We keep our house, 65 in the winter time here. So if it doesn't look like it's gonna do a whole lot, then I'll put a space heater near it or hot water bottles around it or whatever under a blanket, and just switch them out. It's actually already starting to bubble here, so I really had the yeast activated good. So that should take about a week or so, maybe 5 days if I keep it warm enough. And once it starts bubbling, all the fruit will settle to the bottom, and we'll know that it's ready to start the distillery process. Basically, this here would just turn to a peach wine, and you could rack it and bottle it that way if you wanted to turn it into a peach wine and just be done with it here at this point. But we're gonna go ahead and throw that in the distiller, and this 4.5 or 5 gallon jug should give us a little less than a gallon of a final batch of a clear whiskey, moonshine type of thing. It usually will have a very slight peach taste. It's not like a peach schnapps or anything like that. So any kind of fruit, anytime I do this with apple or anything like that, you can very slightly taste the peach, and it's not overwhelming. It's still going to have that real high proof, so it's still a hot liquor. So we'll go from there. I'll put another video up after this, probably in a week or so, of the distilling process, and we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope this works out good. All right, thanks a lot. We'll see you later. And here it is after about an hour with the yeast in it, and it's working away. You can see the different layers, cloudy, and then some of the fruit at the bottom. But when it's bubbling like this, this is how you know it's working. That's actually bubbling pretty fast, so this is going to make some good stuff. All right, see you next week.